their anima, she buried in silence. You have been walking through your days like someone searching for a key you cannot name. The weight of unexpressed emotions sits heavy in your chest, a familiar ache that whispers of things left unsaid, dreams deferred, and parts of yourself that you learned to hide before you even understood what they were. Tonight, as the world settles into darkness and the noise of day fades into memory, you find yourself at the threshold of something deeper. Not sleep exactly, but a kind of conscious dreaming where the boundaries between what you know and what you feel begin to dissolve. There is a story your soul has been trying to tell you, written in the language of symbols and shadows, in the currency of dreams and the forgotten wisdom of your younger self. It speaks of the feminine principle within you, not bound by gender, but by the quality of receptivity, intuition, and the deep knowing that comes not from thinking, but from being. This is the voice you silenced when the world told you to be stronger, more rational, less feeling. This is the anima, the soul image that connects you to the mystery of your own depths, the bridge between your conscious self and the vast unconscious realm where healing lives. You remember being a child who felt everything too deeply, the way sunlight through leaves could make you cry with beauty, how the sadness in your mother's eyes affected you more than her words ever could. The dreams that felt more real than waking life, populated by figures who seemed to know you better than you knew yourself. Somewhere along the way, you learned that this sensitivity was a burden to be managed rather than a gift to be honored. You built walls around your heart, not to keep others out, but to keep the intensity of your own feeling contained. You practiced speaking in voices that weren't quite your own, performing versions of yourself that felt safer, but somehow smaller. The dreams grew quieter. The intuitive knowing that once guided you became a whisper you struggled to hear above the noise of expectation and obligation. You told yourself this was growing up, becoming practical, learning to function in a world that rewarded efficiency over authenticity. But late at night, when the defenses grew tired and the masks slipped away, you could feel her still, the part of you that remembers what it feels like to be truly alive. She waits in the spaces between sleep and waking, in the pause between heartbeats, in the silence that follows the last note of a song that moves you to tears. She is not separate from you. She is you, the you that existed before you learned to apologize for your depth, before you began rationing your love, as if it were a finite resource that might run out if you gave too freely. In the mythology of your own becoming, there was a moment when you chose safety over truth. It might have been gradual, a series of small compromises that seemed reasonable at the time, or perhaps it was sudden, a particular wound that taught you that vulnerability was dangerous, that the soft parts of yourself needed armor. You learned to speak the language of the world around you, to measure your worth by external standards, to trust logic over intuition. Even when your body whispered warnings, your mind refused to hear. You became skilled at translation, converting the poetry of your inner experience into the prose that others could understand and accept. But translation always involves loss. Something essential gets left behind in the space between languages, between the felt sense of truth and its expression in acceptable terms. The more fluent you became in the language of conformity, the more distant you grew from your native tongue, the wordless knowing that once moved through you like breath. In dreams, she still speaks fluently. She appears as the wise woman by the well, the child dancing in moonlight, the lover who sees through your carefully constructed facades to the luminous being beneath. She reminds you of colors you forgot existed, of music that plays in frequencies your waking ears have learned to filter out. These nocturnal visitations are not merely psychological phenomena. They are invitations, letters written in the script of symbol and metaphor, calling you back to a conversation you abandoned, but that never abandoned you. The path back to her is not a journey of recovery, but of remembering, not healing broken parts, but integrating exiled aspects of yourself that never broken, only banished. The work is not to fix what is wrong, but to reclaim what was always whole. This process requires a different kind of courage than the world typically celebrates. Not the courage of conquest, but of surrender. Not the bravery of fighting, but of feeling. Not the strength of resistance, but of receptivity to what wants to emerge from the depths of your own being. You begin by paying attention to what you have learned to ignore. The flutter in your stomach when you encounter beauty, the pull you feel towards certain people, places, or possibilities that your rational mind cannot explain. The dreams that linger long after waking, leaving you with impressions that feel important even when their meaning remains unclear. Notice how your body responds to different experiences. Where do you feel expansion? And where do you feel contraction? What makes you lean in with curiosity? And what makes you want to hide? These are not random reactions, but intelligent responses from the part of you that knows truth directly, without the mediation of analysis. She speaks through your attractions and aversions, through the art that moves you and the stories that make you weep. She communicates through synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that feel like letters from the universe, reminding you that you are part of a larger conversation than the one happening inside your head. There is a secret you have been keeping from yourself, buried so deep that you no longer remember the burial. It is the secret of your own magnificence, hidden beneath layers of doubt and self-criticism, protected by defenses that were meant to be temporary but became permanent installations. The secret is this: you are not broken. You never were. The parts of yourself you learned to hide or heal or fix are not problems to be solved, but aspects of your wholeness that were temporarily forgotten. The sensitivity you were taught to manage is actually a superpower. The emotions you learned to regulate are rivers of information flowing from the deepest wisdom of your being. Your intuition, dismissed as impractical, is actually the most practical guidance system you possess. Your dreams, relegated to the realm of the meaningless, are letters from your unconscious offering solutions your conscious mind could never devise. Your capacity for feeling, which you learn to see as weakness, is the very quality that connects you to the aliveness that most people spend their lives seeking. The anima within you holds the keys to this remembering. She is the aspect of your psyche that never forgot how to feel, how to receive, how to be rather than do. She is the part of you that knows love not as an emotion, but as a state of being, creativity not as a skill, but as a way of relating to existence. When you remember her, you remember that you are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, not a machine to be optimized, but a garden to be tended, not a project to be completed, but a story still being written in the collaboration between your conscious choices and the deeper intelligence that moves through all things. The masculine principle within you, what depth psychology calls the animus, is not the enemy of this feminine knowing, but its complement. When balanced, he provides structure for her flow, direction for her receptivity, action for her intuition. But when unbalanced, he becomes the inner critic that judges her softness as weakness, her cyclical nature as inconsistency, her emotional intelligence as irrationality. Healing happens when these inner forces learn to dance together rather than fight for dominance, when the masculine aspect of your psyche learns to serve the feminine wisdom rather than override it, when your capacity for thinking becomes the ally of your capacity for feeling, rather than its adversary. This is not about rejecting logic or embracing chaos. It is about restoring the rightful relationship between different ways of knowing, allowing each to contribute its gifts to the fuller expression of who you are. It is about learning to trust the intelligence of your body, the wisdom of your emotions, and the guidance of your dreams, as much as you trust the analysis of your mind. In a culture that has elevated thinking above feeling, doing above being, and having above being, this rebalancing feels revolutionary, but it is actually evolutionary, a return to a more integrated way of experiencing yourself and the world that honors all aspects of your humanity. When you stop trying to think your way through everything and allow yourself to feel your way forward, you discover that you have access to an intelligence far more sophisticated than anything your mind could generate alone. This is the intelligence of the whole system: body, heart, mind, and spirit working in harmony rather than competition. There was a time in your life when you knew how to play, not the structured play of organized activities, but the spontaneous, imaginative play that emerges from pure aliveness. You could spend hours absorbed in worlds of your own creation, where the ordinary rules of reality were suspended and anything was possible. This capacity for play was not separate from your spiritual life, but identical to it. In those moments of creative absorption, you were naturally in communion with the mystery of existence, participating in the ongoing creation of reality through your imagination and attention. Somewhere in the process of growing up, you learned to distinguish between the real and the imaginary, relegating play to the realm of childhood indulgence, rather than recognizing it as a fundamental human capacity for engaging with the creative force of the universe. You began to apologize for your flights of fancy, to explain away your daydreams, to treat your imagination as an escape from reality rather than a way of participating in its continuous creation. But your Anima remembers. She holds the memory of who you were before you learned to be embarrassed by wonder, before you started editing your dreams to make them more acceptable to the practical world. She is the keeper of your creative fire, the guardian of your capacity for enchantment, the part of you that still believes in magic because she is magic. When you reconnect with her, you rediscover that reality is far more malleable than you learned to believe, that your thoughts and feelings and imaginings are not separate from the world, but participate in its ongoing creation, that you are not a passive observer of life, but an active co-creator, constantly influencing the reality you experience through the quality of your attention and the nature of your beliefs. The wound that caused you to exile her was likely relational. Someone you loved, a parent, a teacher, a friend, responded to your authentic expression with rejection, criticism, or withdrawal. The message was clear. This is not acceptable. This is too much. This is not safe. In that moment, you made a survival decision that probably saved your life, at least psychologically. You decided it was better to be loved, conditionally for who you pretended to be, than to risk being rejected completely for who you actually were. You developed strategies for earning love and avoiding abandonment that required you to sacrifice authenticity for approval. These strategies worked in their own way. They helped you navigate environments that were not equipped to hold your full truth. They allowed you to form connections, achieve success, and maintain stability in a world that often punishes sensitivity and rewards conformity. But every survival strategy has a cost. The cost of this particular adaptation was the exile of your most authentic self, the suppression of the very qualities that made you unique and valuable. The part of you that was too much became the part of you that was not enough, not because you actually lacked anything, but because you learned to hide your abundance. The healing happens when you recognize that the environments that required you to diminish yourself were the problem, not your fullness. That the people who could not hold your depth were limited by their own wounds, not rejecting you because you were fundamentally flawed. This recognition allows for a different kind of relationship to emerge, not just with others, but with yourself. You begin to see that your sensitivity is not a burden, but a gift. Your emotional depth, not a weakness, but a strength. Your need for authentic connection, not a demand, but an offering. In the quiet hours of the night, when the defenses that protect you during the day grow thin with exhaustion, you can feel her stirring. She moves like water, finding its way around obstacles, like wind carrying the scent of seasons you thought you had forgotten. She speaks in the language of sensation and symbol, in dreams that feel more real than waking life. She shows you images that make no logical sense, but perfect emotional sense. A house with rooms you never knew existed. A garden where flowers bloom in impossible colors. A mirror that reflects not your face, but your essence. These are not random neural firings, but communications from the part of you that sees with different eyes, that knows with a different knowing. Pay attention to these nocturnal messages. They are breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself, invitations to remember what you forgot. maps to territories of your own being that you learn to avoid because someone once told you they were dangerous or unrealistic or inappropriate. The woman in your dreams who knows your name before you introduce yourself. She is you. The child who leads you down paths you fear to follow. She is you. The wise elder who speaks in riddles that make your heart race with recognition. She is you. They are all facets of the Anima, aspects of your own feminine wisdom that have been waiting patiently for you to remember that they exist. When you wake from these dreams, resist the urge to dismiss them as mere fantasy. Instead, carry them with you like treasures, letting their imagery and feeling tone influence your waking hours. Notice how the world looks different when you see it through the eyes of the dreamer rather than the critic. How possibilities emerge that were invisible to your more practical vision. The journey back to her is not a linear progression, but a spiral dance. You will circle back to the same issues and patterns again and again, but each time from a slightly different angle, with a slightly deeper understanding. What felt like failure, the repetition of familiar struggles, is actually the methodology of integration. Each time you encounter an old wound or pattern, you have the opportunity to respond from a more mature place, to offer yourself the compassion you needed then, but may not have received. This is not about fixing the past, but about healing your relationship to it, allowing the wounded parts of yourself to finally receive the love they have been seeking. The process requires patience with your own timing, trust in your own wisdom, and faith in the intelligence of your unconscious mind to surface what needs to be healed precisely when you are ready to heal it. Forcing the process only creates more wounds. Rushing toward wholeness paradoxically delays its arrival. Instead, you learn to be with what is arising, without immediately trying to change it, to feel what you are feeling without needing to fix it, to meet your own pain with the same tenderness you would offer a beloved friend. This quality of presence, accepting, curious, compassionate, is itself healing. The Anima teaches you that healing is not about becoming someone different, but about becoming more fully yourself. Not about transcending your humanity, but about embracing it completely. Not about rising above your emotions, but about learning to swim in their depths without drowning. There is a quality of attention that she teaches, different from the focused concentration prized by the rational mind. It is a softer awareness more receptive than directive, more allowing than controlling. Like the way you listen to music or watch clouds, not trying to grasp or analyze, but simply receiving what is being offered. This receptive attention opens doorways that effort cannot. It allows you to notice the subtle currents of energy that move through your body, the emotional undertones of interactions that your thinking mind might miss, the synchronicities that weave meaning through the apparent randomness of daily experience. When you practice this quality of attention, you begin to live more like an artist than a manager. Instead of trying to control outcomes, you become curious about what wants to emerge. Instead of imposing your will on situations, you learn to sense the natural direction of flow and align yourself with it. This does not mean becoming passive or abandoning your capacity for decisive action. Rather, it means learning to act from a place of deeper knowing, allowing your choices to emerge from the marriage of wisdom and intuition rather than from anxiety or ambition alone. Your anima holds the template for this way of being. She knows how to be present without agenda, how to love without attachment, how to create without grasping. She understands that the most profound influence comes not from pushing, but from presence, not from doing, but from being authentically yourself. The culture around you may not recognize the value of what she offers. In a world that measures worth by productivity and success by accumulation, her gifts, presence, receptivity, emotional intelligence, intuitive knowing may seem impractical or indulgent. But these qualities are exactly what the world needs most, even if it does not know how to ask for them. Your sensitivity is not a design flaw, but a feature. In a world growing increasingly disconnected from its own heart, those who can feel deeply serve as emotional bridges, helping others remember their own capacity for authentic feeling. Your intuition is not wishful thinking, but a form of intelligence that operates faster than logic, gathering information from sources your rational mind cannot access. Your need for beauty, meaning, and authentic connection is not selfish, but ecological. These needs point toward what makes life worth living, what nourishes the soul and feeds the spirit. By honoring these needs in yourself, you help preserve their value in a culture that often sacrifices depth for efficiency. The healing you do in reclaiming your anima ripples outward in ways you may never fully see. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, feeling over thinking, being over doing, you give others permission to do the same. You become a living reminder that there are other ways to be human than the narrow scripts offered by a culture in crisis. This is not about becoming a savior or taking responsibility for healing the world. It is about recognizing that your own healing contributes to the healing of the whole, that the work you do to reclaim your authentic self creates space for others to do the same. In the depth psychology that would later be associated with his name, there was once a Swiss psychiatrist who understood that the human psyche was far more complex and mysterious than the medical models of his time acknowledged. He recognized that symptoms were often not problems to be eliminated, but messages from unconscious attempts by the deeper self to restore balance and wholeness. This man, Carl Jung, spent decades exploring the landscape of the human soul, mapping territories that his scientific colleagues preferred to ignore or explain away. Discovered that within every individual lives a vast inner world populated by archetypal figures, universal patterns of human experience that appear across cultures and throughout history. Among these figures, he identified what he called the Anima, men, and the Animus in women, the contrasexual aspect of the psyche that serves as a bridge between conscious and unconscious, between the known self and the hidden depths. But his understanding evolved to recognize that these principles exist in all individuals, regardless of gender, as complementary modes of being that seek integration rather than dominance. Jung once observed, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This was not merely an intellectual insight, but a lived understanding born from his own journey into the depths of his psyche, his own encounter with the figures that inhabited his dreams and active imagination. He recognized that modern civilization's emphasis on rationality and external achievement had created a profound imbalance, cutting people off from the sources of meaning and vitality that flow from the unconscious. The symptoms of this disconnection: depression, anxiety, a sense of emptiness, despite external success, were not diseases to be medicated away, but calls from the soul to remember what had been forgotten. The night holds different possibilities than day. In darkness, the boundaries between self and world become more permeable. The critical voice that monitors your every thought and feeling during daylight hours grows quieter, allowing other voices to emerge, voices that speak in images and emotions, in body sensations and intuitive knowings. This is why so many traditions Associate nighttime with spiritual practice, with prayer and meditation, with the kind of deep listening that is difficult to access when the world is demanding your attention. Night creates a natural container for introspection, a sanctuary where you can encounter aspects of yourself that remain hidden during the more defended hours. As you settle into this nocturnal space, allow yourself to soften. Release the tension you carry in your shoulders, the vigilance you maintain in your jaw, the protective shell you wear around your heart. This is not a time for doing, but for being, not for solving, but for listening, not for controlling, but for receiving. Feel the weight of your body against whatever supports it. Notice the rhythm of your breath, how it continues without your conscious direction, connecting you to the vast respiratory system of the planet. Sense the life force that moves through your bloodstream, the intelligence that beats your heart and digests your food and heals your wounds without any instruction from your thinking mind. You are not just a collection of thoughts and memories, but a living expression of something vast and mysterious, a unique manifestation of the same creative force that moves the stars and seasons, that grows flowers from seeds and children from dreams. In this state of receptive awareness, begin to sense the presence of your anima, not as a separate entity, but as an aspect of your own being that has been waiting for this recognition. She may appear as a feeling rather than a figure, a quality of attention rather than a visual image. There is no right way for this encounter to unfold, no prescribed form she must take. Some people sense her as a warmth in the heart, a softening around the edges of consciousness. Others feel her as a deep knowing that emerges from the belly, a wisdom that speaks without words. She might appear as a memory from childhood, a figure from dreams, or simply as a different way of experiencing yourself, more fluid, more allowing, more connected to the mystery of being alive. Don't try to grasp or analyze this experience. The Anima cannot be captured by the thinking mind, only encountered through the heart. Allow whatever arises to simply be present without needing to understand or explain it. This is a meeting between parts of yourself that have been separated by years of conditioning, decades of learning to be someone other than who you naturally are. If nothing seems to happen, that is also perfect. The intention itself creates change, even when change is not immediately apparent. The simple act of reaching toward this aspect of yourself, of creating space for her presence begins to dissolve the barriers that have kept her hidden. Trust that she knows you are ready for this encounter, even if you do not feel ready. Trust that her timing is perfect, even if it does not match your expectations. Trust that she has been preparing for this reunion as long as you have been unconsciously longing for it. The conversation between you and your anima doesn't happen in words, but in the deeper language of symbol and sensation, image and emotion. Yam speaks through the sudden appearance of meaningful coincidences, through dreams that leave you changed, even when you cannot remember their content, through attractions and aversions that seem to emerge from some wisdom deeper than preference. Listen with your whole being, not just your ears. Feel with your entire body, not just your heart. See with the eyes of your soul, not just your physical vision. She communicates through all these channels simultaneously, weaving messages into the fabric of your experience in ways that bypass the censorship of the rational mind. You might notice that certain songs move you to tears for reasons you cannot explain, that particular places fill you with a sense of coming home, even when you have never been there before. That specific people seem to see you in ways that make you feel both exposed and recognized. These are not random experiences, but communications from the part of you that knows truth directly, without the mediation of analysis. The anima speaks fluent symbol. A bird appearing at a significant moment is not just a bird, but a message about freedom or transcendence. A dream of water is not just about H2O, but about the flow of emotion, the cleansing of old wounds, the nourishment of new growth. A sudden knowing about a decision is not just intuition, but guidance from the aspect of yourself that sees the larger pattern of your life. Learning her language requires a different kind of intelligence than the linear thinking prized by academic institutions. It requires the intelligence of poetry, of art, of music, the capacity to recognize meaning in metaphor, significance in symbol, truth in what cannot be literally proven, but can be deeply felt. As you deepen this relationship with your inner feminine, you may find that your dreams become more vivid, more memorable, more obviously meaningful. This is not coincidence but consequence. When you begin to pay attention to the unconscious, it responds by becoming more active, more communicative, more available to conscious awareness. Keep a journal by your bedside, not to analyze your dreams, but to honor them, to give them space in your waking world, to signal to your unconscious that these nocturnal communications are valued and welcomed. Write down not just the narrative of dreams, but their feeling tone, their colors and textures, the emotions they evoke even after their details fade. Notice how these dream images begin to appear in your waking life. The woman from last night's dream who reminds you of someone you encounter at work. The landscape from a recurring dream that you suddenly recognize in a photograph. The animal that appears in sleep and then crosses your path during the day. These synchronicities are not magical thinking, but evidence of the profound interconnection between inner and outer reality. Your anima often appears first in dreams as various female figures, sometimes young, sometimes old, sometimes familiar, sometimes completely foreign. She might be a wise woman offering guidance, a child calling you to play, a lover inviting deeper intimacy, or a wounded figure asking for healing. All of these are facets of the same deeper reality, the feminine principle within your own psyche, seeking recognition and integration. Do not try to interpret these figures literally or reduce them to simple meanings. Instead, let them live in your imagination. Let them influence your waking consciousness. Let them teach you through their ayuyu, presence rather than their explanation. The goal is not to become someone who never feels pain, but someone who can feel everything: joy and sorrow, love and loss, hope and despair, without losing connection to your essential wholeness. This is the gift your anima offers, not protection from life's difficulties, but the capacity to remain open and responsive to the full spectrum of human experience. There are moments in this process when you may feel overwhelmed by the intensity of what emerges. In these times, remember that you are not fragile. You are not broken. You are simply remembering how to feel in a culture that has taught you to numb, how to be sensitive in a world that rewards toughness, how to trust your inner knowing in an environment that privileges external authority. The overwhelm is often not about the present moment, but about years of accumulated unfelt feelings finally finding expression. Like a dam breaking, the initial rush can feel chaotic and uncontrollable. But just as floodwaters eventually find their natural course, your emotions will also find their rhythm if you allow them space to flow without trying to redirect or contain them prematurely. During these intense periods, grounding practices become essential. Feel your feet on the earth, your body's weight against solid surfaces. Return again and again to the rhythm of your breath, the beating of your heart, the simple fact of your physical existence in this moment. These anchors help you navigate emotional storms without losing yourself in them. Remember, too, that you do not have to do this work alone. While the relationship with your anima is ultimately private and personal, having support from trusted friends, therapists, or spiritual guides can provide essential stability as you navigate the deeper territories of your psyche. The key is choosing support that honors the process rather than trying to fix or shortcut it. Some well-meaning people may encourage you to get over difficult emotions quickly or to think positively rather than feeling what needs to be felt. Trust your own knowing about what you need, even when others do not understand the value of descending into darkness in order to find light. As your relationship with your anima deepens, you may notice that your dreams become teachers in ways you never expected. She often appears first in the nocturnal realm because sleep naturally lowers the barriers between conscious and unconscious, creating conditions where different aspects of the psyche can encounter each other more freely. Pay attention not just to the content of dreams, but to their emotional texture, their colors and qualities of light, their pace and rhythm. Your anima may appear as different figures in different dreams, but there will often be a consistent feeling tone that helps you recognize her presence across various manifestations. She might appear as the wise woman who offers cryptic but meaningful advice, the child who leads you into unexplored territories, the lover who sees through your defenses to your essential beauty, or the artist who shows you possibilities you had not imagined. Sometimes she appears not as a person, but as a quality of landscape, a garden, a body of water, a forest clearing that evokes feelings of coming home to yourself. Do not try to interpret these dreams literally or reduce their symbolism to simple meanings. Instead, let them live in your imagination throughout the day, influencing how you see and move through your waking world. The goal is not to decode the dreams, but to let their essence infuse your conscious life with deeper meaning and possibility. Keep a dream journal, not for analysis, but for relationship. Write down what you remember with gratitude, as if receiving letters from a beloved friend. Over time, you may begin to notice patterns, recurring themes, or evolving storylines that reveal the ongoing conversation between different aspects of your psyche. The feminine principle that your anima represents is not limited to any particular gender expression or sexual orientation. She exists within all human beings as the capacity for receptivity, intuition, emotional intelligence, and creative expression. In some individuals, this principle may be more naturally accessible. In others, It may require conscious cultivation, regardless of your biological sex or gender identity. Integrating your anima means developing a conscious relationship with these receptive, feeling-based ways of knowing and being. It means learning to trust your intuition as much as your logic, to value being as much as doing, to honor the intelligence of your emotions as much as the analysis of your thoughts. This integration does not require abandoning more traditionally masculine qualities like direction, focus, and decisive action. Rather, it involves bringing these different modes of consciousness into dialogue and collaboration, rather than allowing one to dominate or suppress the other. When the masculine and feminine principles within you learn to work together, you become capable of a more complete and nuanced response to life's challenges. You can be both strong and sensitive, both directed and receptive, both analytical and intuitive. You discover that these are not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of your full human potential. The culture around you may send messages that these qualities cannot coexist, that you must choose between strength and sensitivity, between success and authenticity. But your anima knows better. She understands that real strength includes the courage to feel deeply, that genuine success includes the satisfaction of living in alignment with your deepest values. Carl Jung spent years developing what he called active imagination, a method of consciously engaging with the unconscious contents through creative dialogue and visualization. This practice became central to his own psychological development and to his work with patients who were seeking to integrate disowned aspects of their personalities. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung wrote, is to become who you truly are. This becoming is not a destination, but a process, not an achievement, but an ongoing conversation between different aspects of the self. The active imagination provides a language for this conversation, a way of bridging the gap between conscious intentions and unconscious wisdom. The practice is deceptively simple. You create a mental space where you can encounter aspects of your psyche in imaginative form, then engage with them as if they were separate beings with their own perspectives and wisdom to offer. This is not schizophrenia or dissociation, but a conscious use of imagination in service of integration and healing. When practicing active imagination with your anima, the key is to approach her as you would approach any relationship, with respect, curiosity, and genuine interest in her perspective. Ask her questions, but also listen for her questions to you. Share your struggles and confusions, but also be open to her guidance and wisdom. She may communicate through images, emotions, body sensations, or sudden insights that seem to arise from nowhere. She may challenge your assumptions, comfort your fears, or reveal aspects of situations that your conscious mind had not considered. The important thing is to remain in dialogue rather than trying to control or direct the encounter. The relationship with your anima evolves as you evolve. In the early stages, she may appear primarily as a healer, helping you recover from the wounds that caused her exile in the first place. She offers comfort, understanding, and the gentle guidance needed to restore trust between different aspects of yourself. As the relationship deepens, she may take on more of a guide role, showing you possibilities you had not imagined, leading you toward experiences that serve your growth and expansion. She becomes less focused on healing old wounds and more interested in exploring new territories of consciousness and creativity. In the mature stages of the relationship, she may appear more as a collaborator and co-creator, working with your conscious awareness to manifest your deepest purposes and contribute your unique gifts to the world. The distinction between you and her becomes less important than the integrated wholeness that emerges from your conscious partnership. Throughout all these stages, the fundamental quality of the relationship remains the same. It is based on love rather than need, on respect rather than control, on dialogue rather than domination. You learn to honor her wisdom without abandoning your own discernment, to follow her guidance without losing your own agency. This is the paradox of anima integration. The more consciously you relate to her as if she were separate from you, the more integrated and whole you become. The dialogue between conscious and unconscious creates the creative tension that generates new possibilities, new ways of being and knowing that transcend the limitations of either perspective alone. In the deep hours of night, when the world sleeps and dreams take precedence over rational thought, you can feel the truth that your anima has been trying to communicate all along. You are not separate from the mystery of existence, but a unique expression of it. You are not a problem to be solved, but a question to be lived, not a machine to be optimized, but a poem being written by the cosmos itself. This recognition changes everything and nothing. The external circumstances of your life may remain the same, but your relationship to them transforms completely. You begin to see your challenges as opportunities for growth, your wounds as gateways to wisdom, your sensitivity as a superpower rather than a liability. The loneliness that once felt unbearable begins to transform into solitude, a quality of aloneness that is nourishing rather than depleting, connected rather than isolated. You discover that you are never truly alone because you carry within you the source of companionship, creativity, and meaning that you once sought exclusively in the external world. This does not mean withdrawing from relationships or avoiding the world. Rather, it means engaging with others from a place of fullness rather than emptiness, sharing your gifts rather than seeking to have your needs met, offering your authentic presence rather than performing acceptable versions of yourself. Your Anima teaches you that love is not something you earn through good behavior or attractive qualities, but something you are, something that flows through you naturally when you are connected to your own essence. This love is not dependent on others' responses or approval. It is the fundamental energy of your being, seeking expression through whatever forms are available. The healing that occurs through Anima integration ripples outward in ways that you may never fully comprehend. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, every time you honor your sensitivity rather than apologizing for it, every time you trust your intuition despite external pressure to be more rational, you create permission for others to do the same. You become a living example that there are other ways to be human than the narrow scripts offered by a culture that often seems to have forgotten the value of depth, meaning, and authentic connection. Without preaching or trying to convert anyone, you demonstrate through your very presence that it is possible to be successful without sacrificing your soul, strong without becoming hard, intelligent without losing your heart. The children who encounter you feel safer expressing their own sensitivity because they sense in you someone who will not shame them for feeling deeply. The adults who know you begin to question their own assumptions about what it means to be mature, successful, or appropriately self-controlled. Even strangers may sense something different about your presence, a quality of aliveness and authenticity that reminds them of possibilities they had forgotten. This influence is not something you manufacture or strive for. It is simply the natural consequence of becoming more fully yourself, of integrating the aspects of your personality that you once kept hidden or denied. When you stop trying to be what others want you to be and start being who you actually are, you give everyone around you permission to do the same. The world needs people who are willing to feel deeply, to trust their intuition, to value being as much as doing, to prioritize meaning over efficiency. These qualities are not luxuries for the privileged, but necessities for the survival and thriving of human consciousness. Your personal healing contributes to the healing of the collective wound created by centuries of splitting mind from heart, doing from being, masculine from feminine. There will be times in this journey when you doubt the value of the path you are walking. The culture around you may continue to reward qualities that feel foreign to your newly awakened sensitivity. You may question whether your emphasis on feeling and intuition is simply self-indulgence, whether your commitment to authenticity is just an excuse for being impractical or unrealistic. In these moments of doubt, return to the evidence of your own experience. Notice how you feel when you honor your anima versus when you ignore her. Pay attention to the quality of your relationships, your creative expression, your sense of meaning and purpose when you are living from your integrated wholeness versus when you are performing acceptable versions of yourself. The proof of this path lies not in external validation, but in internal coherence, the sense of alignment between your deepest values and your daily choices, between your authentic nature and your expression in the world. When you are living from your integrated wholeness, there is a quality of rightness that pervades your experience, even when the external circumstances are challenging. Trust the intelligence of your own being to guide you toward what serves your highest good and the good of all life. Your anima is not a separate entity with her own agenda, but an aspect of your own wisdom seeking fuller expression. When you listen to her guidance, you are not abandoning your rational mind, but including it in a larger intelligence that encompasses both thinking and feeling, both analysis and intuition. The path of integration requires courage, not the courage of conquest, but the courage of vulnerability, not the bravery of fighting, but the bravery of feeling, not the strength to overcome, but the strength to include everything that arises in the spaciousness of your awareness. As Jung observed in his later writings, the individuation process, the journey towards psychological wholeness, is not just a personal endeavor, but a contribution to the evolution of human consciousness. Each person who does the work of integrating their shadow, relating consciously to their anima or animus, and living from their authentic self, helps to heal the collective splits that have created so much suffering in the world. Everything that irritates us about others, Jung noted, can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The triggers and projections that arise in your relationships become doorways to deeper self-knowledge when you have the courage to own what belongs to you rather than trying to change what belongs to others. Your anima helps you recognize these projections because she represents the qualities you may have disowned in yourself and unconsciously seek in others. When you reclaim these qualities as aspects of your own wholeness, your relationships become cleaner, more honest, more capable of genuine intimacy and mutual growth. This work is never complete because life continues to offer new opportunities for integration, new challenges that reveal previously unconscious aspects of your personality. But the process becomes less dramatic and more graceful as you develop skill in recognizing and integrating these emerging contents. The goal is not perfection, but consciousness, not eliminating your unconscious, but developing an increasingly harmonious relationship with it. Your anima becomes not just a helper in this process, but a constant companion, a source of wisdom and creativity that enriches your life immeasurably. In the stillness of this moment, as the night deepens around you and the ordinary defenses of consciousness grow soft with fatigue, you can sense her presence more clearly than ever before, not as something separate from you, but as the deepest truth of who you are when all the masks and strategies and learned behaviors fall away. She is the part of you that has never forgotten how to wonder, how to love without condition, how to be present to beauty in all its forms. She is the aspect of your being that recognizes the sacred in the ordinary, that finds meaning in the midst of apparent meaninglessness, that knows how to dance with the mystery of existence rather than trying to solve it. Your anima does not promise to make your life easier or to shield you from difficulty and loss. What she offers is infinitely more valuable, the capacity to meet whatever arises with presence, compassion, and creative response. She teaches you that you are resilient not because you are hard, but because you are flexible, not because you are invulnerable, but because you can feel everything and still remain open to love. This openness is not naive optimism, but mature wisdom, earned through the willingness to face your own darkness and embrace your own light. It is the openness of someone who has learned that running from pain only creates more pain, that avoiding difficulty only increases suffering, that the path through is always more healing than the path around. When you live from this integrated wholeness, your very presence becomes a gift to the world, not because you are perfect, but because you are real, not because you have all the answers, but because you are comfortable with questions, not because you never struggle, but because you have learned to struggle with grace. The night air carries whispers of possibility that daylight consciousness cannot always hear. In these quiet hours, when the boundary between sleep and waking becomes permeable, you can receive communications from aspects of your being that remain hidden during more defended times. Listen with the ears of your heart to what wants to be known. Feel with the intelligence of your whole body what wants to be felt. Allow yourself to be touched by the mystery of your own existence, the miracle of consciousness arising from matter, of meaning emerging from chaos, of love flowering in the midst of a seemingly indifferent universe. Your anima is the gardener of this flowering, the midwife of this emergence. She knows how to tend the seeds of possibility that lie dormant in the soil of your unconscious, how to create conditions where what wants to be born can safely come into being. She understands the seasons of the soul, when to plant, when to tend, when to harvest, when to let fields lie fallow. Trust her timing, even when it does not match your preferences or expectations. Trust her wisdom, even when it challenges your assumptions or comfortable patterns. Trust her love, especially when you feel least worthy of being loved. She sees you as you truly are, not as you pretend to be or fear you might be, but as the unique and precious expression of consciousness that you have always been. In this recognition, healing happens, not the healing that fixes what is broken, but the healing that remembers what was never broken, that reclaims what was temporarily forgotten, that integrates what was artificially separated. This is the healing your soul has been seeking through all the strategies and searching, through all the relationships and achievements, through all the attempts to become someone other than who you naturally are. The journey toward wholeness is not a linear progression, but a spiral dance, circling back through familiar territories, but from increasingly mature perspectives. Each time you encounter an old pattern or wound, you have the opportunity to respond from greater wisdom, to offer yourself the understanding and compassion that may have been missing in earlier encounters. Your anima serves as both witness and guide. In this process, helping you recognize when old material is surfacing for integration, rather than simply repeating compulsively. She helps you distinguish between healing responses and reactive patterns, between growth that serves your evolution and change that merely serves your ego's agenda. The difference lies in the quality of consciousness you bring to your experience. When you are reacting from unintegrated wounds, there is a quality of urgency, of needing to fix or change or control outcomes. When you are responding from integrated wisdom, there is a quality of presence, of being with what is arising without immediately needing to make it different. This presence is itself transformative. When difficult emotions or challenging circumstances are met with compassionate awareness rather than resistance or judgment, they naturally begin to shift and resolve. Not because you are trying to change them, but because consciousness itself is a healing force. Your Anima teaches you this quality of presence because she embodies it naturally. She does not judge your emotions as good or bad, your experiences as right or wrong, your responses as appropriate or inappropriate. She simply witnesses with love, holds with compassion, and offers wisdom when wisdom is sought. As this inner relationship matures, you may find that your need for external validation diminishes while your capacity for genuine connection increases. When you are no longer seeking in relationships what you have learned to provide for yourself, you become capable of loving others for who they are rather than for how well they fulfill your unconscious needs. This shift from need-based to love-based relating is one of the most significant gifts of Anima integration. Relationships become spaces of mutual enhancement rather than mutual dependency, opportunities for shared growth rather than attempts to complete what feels incomplete within yourself. The possessiveness that once characterized your attachments gives way to a more generous kind of love that celebrates others' freedom and growth, even when their choices do not serve your preferences. The jealousy that arose from fear of loss transforms into appreciation for the abundance of love available when you are connected to its source within yourself. This does not mean becoming emotionally detached or indifferent to outcomes in relationships. Rather, it means loving from fullness rather than emptiness, giving from overflow rather than depletion, creating from joy rather than from need or fear. Your Anima shows you that love is not a limited resource that must be carefully rationed, but an unlimited energy that flows more freely the more generously it is shared. When you stop trying to capture love and start learning to channel it, you discover that you have access to far more than you ever imagined possible. The creative expression that emerges from Anima integration has a quality that is unmistakably authentic. Whether it appears through traditional artistic mediums or through the artistry of living itself, there is something in it that cannot be manufactured or imitated, the essence of your unique way of seeing and being in the world. This creativity is not performance, but revelation, not production, but expression, not achievement, but offering. It emerges from the marriage of your conscious intentions and your unconscious wisdom, from the dialogue between what you know and what knows through you. When you create from this integrated place, the process itself becomes as meaningful as any outcome. The poem that wants to be written writes itself through you. The song that seeks expression sings itself through your voice. The movement that wants to emerge dances itself through your body. You become a channel for something larger than your personal creativity while remaining distinctly yourself. This is the paradox of authentic expression. The more truly you express your unique essence, the more universal your expression becomes. When you speak from your deepest truth, you speak truths that resonate with the deepest places in others. Your Anima is both the muse and the artist in this process. She inspires creation, but she also provides the receptive awareness that allows creation to flow through you without the interference of excessive control or judgment. She teaches you to trust the process even when you cannot see the outcome, to value the journey even when the destination remains unclear. In the tradition that Jung helped establish, there is recognition that the work of individuation, becoming who you truly are, is both deeply personal and inherently collective. Your healing contributes to the healing of the whole, just as the collective healing supports your individual journey toward wholeness. The anima you encounter in your own psyche carries not only your personal history, but also the accumulated wisdom of all the feminine principles that have been suppressed, denied, or devalued throughout human history. When you heal your relationship with your own inner feminine, you participate in healing this larger cultural wound. This healing is urgently needed in a world that has split mind from heart, thinking from feeling, doing from being, masculine from feminine. The symptoms of this split appear everywhere: in environmental destruction, in epidemic levels of depression and anxiety, in the breakdown of community and the rise of isolation, in the replacement of meaning with material success. Your individual work of integration may seem small compared to these massive collective challenges, but it is precisely through individual transformation that collective transformation becomes possible. Every person who learns to honor their sensitivity, trust their intuition, and live from authentic wholeness creates ripples of possibility that extend far beyond their personal sphere. You become a living demonstration that another way of being human is possible, that success and authenticity can coexist, that strength and sensitivity can be complementary rather than contradictory. This demonstration is itself a form of service, a contribution to the collective awakening that is struggling to emerge in these times of crisis and opportunity. Carl Jung's final insights pointed toward what he called the transcendent function, the psychological mechanism that bridges opposites and creates new possibilities from the tension between different aspects of consciousness. The relationship between you and your anima embodies this function, creating possibilities that neither your rational mind nor your unconscious wisdom could generate alone. The meeting of two personalities, Jung observed, is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This is equally true of the meeting between conscious and unconscious aspects of your own personality. The dialogue with your anima changes both participants, creating a third thing that transcends either perspective alone. This transcendence is not escape from human limitations, but their integration into a larger wholeness. You do not become superhuman through anima integration, but more fully human, not perfect, but complete, not without problems, but with the capacity to meet problems from a place of centered wholeness rather than fragmented reactivity. The wisdom that emerges from this integration is not knowledge that can be learned from books or teachers, but understanding that arises from lived experience. It is the wisdom of someone who has faced their own darkness and discovered light, who has encountered their own woundedness and found healing, who has embraced their own mortality and touched something eternal. This wisdom cannot be transferred directly to others, but it creates a field of possibility around you that others can sense and be inspired by. Your very presence becomes a reminder that transformation is possible, that healing can happen, that wholeness is not just a theoretical concept, but a lived reality available to anyone willing to undertake the journey. As the night deepens and your consciousness naturally turns inward, you can feel the truth that has been trying to emerge throughout this entire journey. You are already whole. The anima you have been seeking to integrate has never actually been separate from you. The healing you have been pursuing has already occurred in the deepest dimensions of your being. What remains is simply the recognition of what has always been true, that you are a complete expression of consciousness, perfect in your imperfection, whole in your brokenness, sacred in your ordinariness. The work of integration is not about fixing what is wrong, but about remembering what is right, not about becoming someone different, but about becoming more fully yourself. Your anima whispers this truth in the language of dreams and intuition, in moments of beauty that stop your breath, in experiences of love that dissolve the boundaries between self and other. She reminds you that you are not a human being having a spiritual experience, but a spiritual being having a human experience not separate from the mystery of existence, but a unique expression of it. This recognition changes everything while changing nothing. The external circumstances of your life may remain the same, but your relationship to them is transformed completely. You begin to see your challenges as opportunities for growth, your relationships as mirrors for self-discovery, your creative expression as service to the larger unfolding of consciousness. The loneliness that once felt unbearable transforms into solitude, a quality of aloneness that is nourishing rather than depleting. The sensitivity that you learned to see as weakness reveals itself as a superpower. The emotions that seem so overwhelming become rivers of information flowing from the intelligence of your whole being. In this moment of quiet recognition, allow yourself to feel the presence of all the aspects of yourself that you have been learning to love and integrate. The child who dreams impossible dreams. The adult who learned to function in the practical world. The elder who carries the wisdom of experience. The wounded one who needs healing. The healer who offers medicine. The creator who brings new possibilities into being. They are all you. They have always been you. The apparent separation between them was never real, only a necessary stage in the development of consciousness, a temporary forgetting that makes the remembering all the more precious. Your anima has been the thread connecting all these aspects, the common ground where they can meet and recognize their essential unity. She is not one more part to be integrated, but the integrating principle itself, the love that holds all the pieces together, the wisdom that sees the wholeness even in apparent fragmentation. Feel her presence now, not as something separate from yourself, but as the deepest truth of who you are when all the layers of conditioning and protection fall away. She is your capacity for wonder, your openness to mystery, your willingness to be touched by beauty and moved by love. She is your resilience, your creativity, your ability to find meaning in the midst of chaos. She has never left you, even when you forgot how to sense her presence. She has been waiting patiently through all the years of searching and striving, holding space for your return to yourself, maintaining the connection to your essential wholeness, even when you felt most lost and fragmented. The healing you have been seeking is not something that happens to you, but something that you are. It is not a state you achieve, but a truth you remember, not a destination you reach, but a journey you embrace with increasing consciousness and grace. Every moment offers a new opportunity to choose wholeness over fragmentation, presence over distraction, love over fear. These choices are not always easy, but they become more natural as you practice them, more automatic as you recognize their value, not just for yourself but for all life. Your Anima teaches you that healing is not a private affair, but a collaborative creation between your conscious will and the deeper intelligence that moves through all things. You cannot force healing, but you can create conditions where it naturally occurs. You cannot control outcomes, but you can influence them through the quality of consciousness you bring to each moment. This consciousness is both intensely personal and utterly universal. It is your unique way of participating in the larger healing that wants to happen in the world, your individual contribution to the collective awakening that is struggling to emerge in these times of crisis and transformation. Trust the process, even when you cannot see the outcome. Trust your Anima, even when her guidance challenges your assumptions or comfortable patterns. Trust yourself, especially when you feel least worthy of trust. You are far more resilient, wise, and capable than you have been taught to believe. The night that surrounds you now is not empty darkness but pregnant silence, not the absence of light, but the womb from which light is born. Rest in this darkness without fear, knowing that it holds you with the same love that moves the stars and seasons, that grows flowers from seeds and dreams from silence. Your Anima sings you toward sleep now, toward the realm where healing happens without effort, where integration occurs beyond the reach of conscious control, where the deepest parts of yourself can communicate in the language of symbol and dream. As consciousness fades into the mystery of sleep, carry with you the knowing that you are held, that you are loved, that you are exactly where you need to be in your journey toward wholeness. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities to practice what you have remembered tonight, new challenges that will deepen your integration, new moments to choose authenticity over performance. But for now, simply rest in the embrace of your own wholeness, the recognition of your own completeness, the love that you are and have always been. Let the night restore what the day has depleted. Let dreams weave together what waking consciousness keeps apart. Let sleep return you to the source from which you arose and to which you will always belong. Your Anima keeps vigil while you sleep, tending the garden of your unconscious, preparing the soil for new growth, nurturing the seeds of possibility that will flower in tomorrow's light. She is the eternal feminine within you, the principle of receptivity and creativity, of feeling and intuition, of being and becoming. Rest now in her embrace, knowing that you are loved beyond measure, whole beyond question, and perfect exactly as you are in this moment and in all moments. The journey continues, but for now, simply be. Simply rest. Simply remember that you are already home. Sleep well, beloved soul. Dream deeply. Heal completely. And wake tomorrow more integrated, more authentic, more fully yourself than ever before. This is her gift to you, her promise, her eternal love made manifest in the sacred ordinary of your beautiful, imperfect, perfectly human life is not understanding, but relationship, not analysis, but integration. There is a particular quality of loneliness that comes from being disconnected from your anima, a sense of incompleteness that cannot be filled by external relationships or achievements. It is the loneliness of being estranged from your own depths, cut off from the source of your own creativity and intuition. This loneliness is different from the social isolation that can be remedied by spending time with others. It is an existential aloneness, a feeling of being disconnected from the mystery and meaning of your own existence. No amount of busyness or accomplishment can fill this particular emptiness, because it is not about what you lack externally, but about what you have exiled internally. The reunion with your anima begins to heal this fundamental disconnection. As you learn to relate to this aspect of yourself, you discover that you are never truly alone, because you carry within you the source of companionship, creativity, and wisdom that you have been seeking in the outside world. This does not mean you no longer need others, or that relationships become unnecessary. Rather, it means you begin to relate from wholeness rather than need, from fullness rather than lack. You stop trying to find someone to complete you and start learning to share your completeness. You cease demanding that others carry the projections of your own disowned aspects and begin to reclaim those aspects for yourself. The quality of your relationships changes when you are no longer unconsciously seeking in others what you have rejected in yourself. You become capable of genuine intimacy because you are no longer afraid that too much closeness will reveal the emptiness you have been hiding. You can afford to be vulnerable because you know that your worth does not depend on others' approval. Carl Jung recognized that the process of psychological development involves what he called individuation, the gradual integration of unconscious contents into conscious awareness, leading to a more complete and authentic expression of the self. This is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole, not about eliminating your shadow, but about developing a conscious relationship with all aspects of your personality. The anima plays a crucial role in this process because she serves as a mediator between the conscious ego and the unconscious. She helps translate the symbolic language of the deeper psyche into forms that consciousness can begin to understand and integrate. Without this relationship, people often remain stuck in patterns of projection, seeing in others what they cannot accept in themselves. Jung observed that when the anima is unconscious, she tends to be projected onto others, particularly onto romantic partners who are then expected to carry qualities that actually belong to the individual's own psyche. These projections create impossible relationships because no external person can successfully embody another's disowned aspects. The anima, Jung wrote, is the archetype of life itself. She represents the life force, the creative principle, the capacity for relationship and meaning that gives existence its vitality and significance. When she is integrated, life becomes more vivid, more meaningful, more deeply satisfying. When she remains unconscious, life feels flat, meaningless, disconnected from its own source. The work of integration requires what Jung called active imagination, a practice of consciously engaging with unconscious contents through dialogue, visualization, and creative expression. This is not passive fantasy, but active relationship building with aspects of the psyche that have been split off or rejected. In the depth of night, when the conscious mind's defenses are naturally lowered, you can begin to practice this active engagement with your anima. It starts with intention, the simple willingness to meet this aspect of yourself, to create space for her presence in your awareness. Imagine yourself in a safe, beautiful place, perhaps a garden, a forest clearing, or a comfortable room filled with soft light. This is the meeting ground between conscious and unconscious, a neutral space where different aspects of your psyche can encounter each other without the usual barriers of judgment or control. In this space, invite her presence. You might visualize an empty chair and simply hold the intention that she fill it. You might call out silently, asking her to make herself known. You might simply sit in receptive awareness, allowing whatever wants to emerge to take form in your imagination. Do not force or strain. The anima responds to invitation, not demand. She emerges through receptivity, not through effort. If nothing seems to happen immediately, simply maintain the intention and trust that the process is working at levels deeper than immediate awareness. When some sense of presence begins to emerge, whether as image, feeling, or subtle knowing, greet it with curiosity. rather than analysis. You might ask simple questions. What do you want me to know? How can I honor you more fully? What needs healing between us? But ask these questions with your heart, not your head, and listen for responses that come through feeling and intuition rather than through logical thought. The relationship with your anima develops slowly. Like any meaningful relationship, it requires consistency, patience, and genuine interest. You cannot approach her with the same goal-oriented mindset that might work in other areas of your life. She responds to presence, not productivity, to being, not doing. This means learning to value process over outcome, depth over efficiency, relationship over achievement. These are not natural priorities in a culture that rewards speed and measurable results, but they are essential for any genuine encounter with the unconscious aspects of the psyche. As this relationship deepens, you may notice changes in how you experience yourself and the world. Colors might seem more vivid, emotions more nuanced, dreams more memorable and meaningful. You might find yourself drawn to creative expression, writing, painting, music, dance, as natural languages for communicating with and embodying her energy. Your relationship to your own body may also shift as you reconnect with the anima. The body, in psychological terms, is often associated with the feminine principle, with receptivity, intuition, and feeling-based knowing. As you honor your anima, you may find yourself more attuned to your body's signals, more respectful of its needs, more appreciative of its wisdom. This embodied knowing becomes a compass for navigating life decisions. Instead of making choices purely from mental analysis, you learn to consult the intelligence of your whole being, mind, heart, body, and spirit working together to discern the path that serves your deepest truth. The integration of your anima doesn't happen in isolation from your relationships with others. In fact, one of the clearest signs of this integration is a shift toward more authentic, less desperate connection with other people. When you are no longer unconsciously seeking in others what you have rejected yourself, you become capable of seeing them more clearly, loving them more freely. The romantic projections that once created such intensity and disappointment begin to fade as you reclaim the qualities you were seeking in partners. This does not make relationships less meaningful, but more genuine. Instead of falling in love with your own projections, you become capable of appreciating others for who they actually are, rather than for how well they fulfill your unconscious fantasies. Friendships also deepen when you are no longer performing versions of yourself designed to earn approval, or avoid rejection. You begin to show up more authentically, which inevitably attracts people who are drawn to your genuine self rather than to the mask you learn to wear for safety. Even difficult relationships may improve as you stop trying to change others and focus instead on your own responses and projections. When you are no longer triggered by others' behavior in the same ways, when you can remain centered in your own truth regardless of how others are showing up, the entire dynamic of problematic relationship shifts. This does not mean becoming passive or accepting harmful behavior. Rather, it means responding from a place of wholeness rather than woundedness, making decisions based on your own values rather than on reactive emotions, setting boundaries that serve your well-being rather than trying to control outcomes. There is a quality of creative expression that emerges naturally from a conscious relationship with the anima. It is not the creativity of the striving ego attempting to produce something impressive or marketable, but the creativity of authentic self-expression, allowing what wants to emerge to take form without excessive control or censorship. This creativity is not limited to the traditional arts. It appears in how you arrange your living space, how you prepare food, how you dress, how you move through the world. It is the creativity of living as a work of art, of allowing your life itself to become an expression of your unique essence. When connected to your anima, you may find yourself drawn to creative practices that you previously dismissed as impractical or indulgent. The poem that wants to be written, the song that asks to be sung, the movement that seeks expression through your body. These are not diversions from more important activities, but communications from the creative source within you. Allow yourself to create without the pressure of producing something good or meaningful or useful. Create for the joy of creating, for the pleasure of allowing something to move through you into form. Let go of the critic that judges your efforts before they are even complete. Remember that the value of creative expression lies not in its outcome, but in its process, not in what it produces, but in how it connects you to the alive, flowing, ever-creating aspect of your own being. Your anima is not just receptive, but actively creative. She is the muse, but she is also the artist. She is the one who dreams, but she is also the one who gives form to dreams. When you honor her presence in your life, you discover that you are not just a consumer of others' creativity, but a unique creative force in your own right. The path of anima integration is not always smooth or comfortable. There will be times when the process brings up emotions, memories, or aspects of yourself that you would prefer to keep buried. This is not a sign that something is wrong, but evidence that real healing is occurring. The anima often carries the wounds that caused her exile in the first place. As you reconnect with her, you may re-encounter the original pain that led you to shut down your sensitivity, your creativity, your capacity for deep feeling. This re-experiencing is not a regression, but a necessary part of healing, an opportunity to offer your wounded aspects the understanding and compassion they needed then, but may not have received. Approach these difficult emotions with the same tenderness you would offer a hurt child. Do not try to fix or change them, but simply be present with them. Let them be felt without being solved, acknowledged without being explained. Sometimes the medicine they need is simply the medicine of being witnessed with compassion rather than judgment. Remember that emotions are not problems to be eliminated, but information to be received. Even painful emotions carry intelligence about what needs attention, what requires healing, what is asking for change in your life. Your capacity to feel deeply, even when the feelings are difficult, is not a weakness, but a strength, not a burden, but a gift.